So our next session is being hosted by PwC Luxembourg, and the topic is increased trust through ESG investor-grade reporting. We are happy to welcome Frederick Vonner, advisory partner and sustainability leader, and Julian Melot, assurance partner and sustainability partner.
Is it working? Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Very pleased to be with you in the today in the afternoon. When we thought about what thoughts we'd like to share with you today, we tried to reflect on the topic of today and our topic of the week, shaping our resilient work. And to us, shaping our resilient work means that we might leverage on a number of financial products. We might leverage on a number of technical innovations also. But at the end of the day, we're still an audit firm. And shaping a resilient world to us means that whatever is produced, prepared, disclosed in terms of information, whether we're looking at information that is disclosed either by financial products, SFDR, for example, but also if we think about information that are produced by and shared by corporates, we discuss CSRD, or we touch at least upon the CSRD, we still believe that it's important that whoever is using that information is capable of a proper reliance on the information. So to us, shaping a resilient world means also that somehow we have processes in place which make sure that the reporting that are put out there are resilient to a certain extent, but also that people can account for that reporting, and thus we'll talk about assurance on investor reporting. Before moving into that topic, we'll share some thought as to why we do believe that it is important both for financial products but also for corporates to think about that assurance reporting in the context of creating value. At the end of the day, financial products are there to create value for the investors in a way or another. To do so, the financial products do rely on a number of ESG data, ESG information that are produced by the issuers, and it's all that ecosystem that to a certain extent needs to be assured on in order to be able to deliver on the results. So that's the topic of the next 27 minutes and 52 seconds that we have. Looking at the slide here, at the screen here, sorry. We'll hear first from Julien a few thoughts about ESG value creation and why is it important for investors. We'll move as to what we see also on the market to, again, share some thoughts about those matters. And we'll close with why we do believe that assurance on ESG reporting is key. Julien, to you.
Thank you. Can you hear me here? Yeah. Okay, so basically jumping back to some comments that were made before, I believe that we all know that we are moving from a voluntary reporting exercise to a mandatory one. You were mentioning just before CSRD, you were mentioning as well SFDR. I think those two elements are critical and is becoming more and more common. So all of that is really is made in a reflection at European level to harmonize in a certain way the way ESG is being reported by companies, by investment structure, and to make sure that you as financial sector, you can really benefit from harmonized or from standardized type of data and really take, let's say, informed decision when it comes to investments. So before jumping into what we believe is, let's say, an investor-grade type of report and what are the key foundation of it, I wanted to go through briefly the key challenges. So first of all, obviously, we know that there is a lot of pressure that every one of us is feeling for the moment, being it on the regulatory side, and you were mentioning the huge importance of keeping track about regulatory changes along the time and be able in any organization to make sure that you can cope as well with those changes. But the pressure is also coming from investors, right? Or stakeholders in general. So what we have been seeing recently, working with our clients, is that the pressure was coming from stakeholders, for example, on the fact of having some of the information being assured or whatever. Now, more and more, we see more and more stakeholders, like clients, suppliers, or whatever, that are questioning you and that are asking you to have a real ambition before entering into a business relationship. So what does it mean? If you don't do that, if you don't listen to customers or to stakeholders in general, what will happen is that you can harm your business operation in general. The second point that was important for us was the increased level of scrutiny. And stakeholders in general are waiting for what? They are waiting for transparency today. And to do so, they expect you to report on reliable data, transparent data, complete data, and things that are really accurate and realistic. But in order to do that, we are speaking about a completely different world compared to the past, right? We have been taking decades to put in place the financial reporting process we have in place today. And we have to repeat that in a short number of months to build the non-financial reporting process, right? So this comes with a lot of challenges for organization. And in terms of internal processes, putting in place this non-financial reporting process, building or improving the internal control framework, and making sure that there is a clear governance around it is key to any organization. The last one I wanted to mention on the challenger side was climate risk. So nowadays, you know that climate is centric to any type of discussion. You were mentioning that before as well. And I believe that today, any organization must be really strict in the way it assesses climate risks. And we see it already today with the EFRAG announcement, not announcement, but priorities to make sure that any of those climate risks, if they materialize, they are being reflected in the financial information. So this means that there is already this junction between the financial and non-financial world. So now, before moving into the benefits of having such type of, let's say, investor-grade reporting, I wanted to go into what we believe are the three key pillars or key foundations of such reporting. First, on the governance side, so you all know that on top of overseeing the financial reporting process, governing bodies will have to oversee as well the non-financial reporting one. What does it mean? It means that they will have to be in a position to basically challenge companies in the way they assess risk, respond to these risks, but also preserve the value of a company and preserve their reputation. And in order to do that, we see two practices on the market for the moment, either beefing up the current governing bodies by adding some additional skill sets that are being required to basically challenge management, or on the other side, creating a second body which will oversee the non-financial reporting process. The second foundation of this let's say, ESG investor-grade reporting is the data. So data is key. Data is the new gold. We are speaking about non-existing data. We are speaking about data that has never been collected or unstructured data. So there is a new world to discover there. And I believe that if the foundation of these new regulations requiring you to report on some important elements are not based on, let's say, reliable data, then you might arrive and take decision on data which will lead you to something completely contrary to your basic strategy. And finally, processes need to be improved as well by building new strong processes. You have the experience on the financial side. You have to replicate it on the non-financial side with a lot of additional challenges that are coming from the type of data that is being used, the type of reporting, which is evolving significantly, and more importantly, let's say, the control environment that you will put around that. Depending on the level of data that you will have to monitor, we see more and more companies moving to some kind of technology to support the process. And what we see is that generally companies are nowadays in a strategy where they will basically opt for a feasible solution, simple and flexible for the first 3 to 5 years to make sure that they can cope with basically the changes in regulation that are happening on a daily basis, and then will progressively move to more sophisticated solutions depending on their needs. So all of that to, one, increase transparency. The second thing, reduce risk for companies, but also making sure, and this is really important, we are in a reporting process, but we want to have an impact. So the most important thing is to be able to track the progress towards the ambition, the ESG ambition of each company. So this was on the benefits of the pure reporting, but now Fred, on the value that you can derive from ESG. What do you think about that?
Yeah, the point is not to report for the sake of reporting. I think the point is here to make sure that reporting is done on purpose, which is demonstrating the creation of value. And what we try to display here is the different types of values that can be created and can be supported by a sound reporting. On your left-hand side, we try to summarize what is the value for the business, or more value for business, whereas on the, so I said left, so it's your right now. Your right-hand side is the value for the society. And we put some statistics here just to give you a flavor of what we see, what you observe, but also what data is saying when you talk about these value creations. So obviously, the first point of having a sound reporting, sustaining, and the demonstration of ESG ambition is, elephant in the room, to drive growth. You see here there's an outperformance of the S&P index. I start again. There's an outperformance. I'm very bad with numbers. I'm not an auditor, so now you know why. So there's the S&P ESG index is outperforming the standard ESG index on average by a bit more than 6.5%. That's about the value for the business that can be created by embracing and embedding ESG dimensions and ESG matters in how business is being operated. So there's again obvious first value, which is driving growth of a business. Another point is about reducing cost. Yes, embarking on a non-financial reporting journey will take time. On average, and Julien, correct me if you disagree, but what we observe is that for a corporate, it takes between 12 to 15 months on average to start the process till the publication of the first non-financial reporting. So for the investment managers in the room, you'd rather think about that also in advance, because your target companies, if you want to get data from them and data that is reliable, you should maybe start putting in a bit of pressure now, because again, the entire process that those target companies will have to put in place will take time to deliver on. So reducing costs, yes, it might be a bit of an increase in cost short term for the time for the years, all those processes to be put in place. Yes, on the long term, this is where the reduction of costs by a better risk diversification, but also a better risk embedment into the businesses is being operated. And to be very pragmatic, what we observe, and there's a 19% energy cost reductions that have been surveyed in a number of companies. The fact that a company targets a decrease in greenhouse gas emissions, for example, might lead the company to save costs on energy consumption. So the costs that are produced or that are generated by putting in place and setting up a proper reporting process might be over time compensated by either a reduction of risk, and I come back to that in a minute, but also by a very short-term gain in terms of savings. Third topic, the reputation, which is a bit more complicated to assess on a financial standpoint, obviously. But when you have a corporate that is clearly defining its ESG ambitions, whether it's in the green space or the orange space or the blue space, or the various dimensions that can be seen into the ESG world, obviously this might attract better talents. You might have a better way to retain people. And I just take as an example a survey that has been made in the UK recently, whereby 20% of young people going out of school have said and declared that they would refuse a job if they are not aligned with the ESG values of the potential employer. So just by building a strong or helping building a strong reputation, ESG and embedding ESG dimensions into a corporate strategy might help reducing costs and improving also of long term the engagement of, in that example, people and talents within a company. The last point on the value to business side being the risk mitigation. I already alluded to that. Obviously, if you diversify your sources of goods and materials, for example, if you try to engage in discussions with peers, if you try to do co-investments, for example, into very innovative technologies and innovative products, you increase the risk diversification of your corporate, and thus you decrease the actual risk level that the corporate is facing. So that's very much for the value for the business. Value for the society, obviously, impact management, whether it's about making a positive impact or reducing adverse impact, not alternative impact, is an obvious case here also by having a sound ESG and reportable ESG ambitions for a firm. This might help demonstrating that the firm is doing good. And that's the last point here. We might think about D&I, for example, not only gender diversity, but diversity as a whole and inclusion as a whole as being a key factor for corporate to work for the good of society. Here again, it's nice to set nice ambitions. And I rely on what we've been discussing and hearing before, talking about green bonds, for example, or sustainability-linked bonds. It's nice to have nice ambitions, but it's also about making sure that down the road, down the line, you're able of corporates are able to demonstrate how they are coping with those ambitions. And to demonstrate that, and I'm coming back to you, Julien, this is where having a sound, robust reporting processes in place, potentially assured by a third party, is key.
Maybe coming back to your risk point, if we see it from a corporate perspective, what we see more and more as well is that value chains are moving quite quickly for the moment, because we have some aggressive big players in there that are requesting some strong commitments from their suppliers, for example, from their customers, in terms of ESG reporting ones, but more importantly in terms of targets, in terms of CO2 emission reduction or whatever. So the pressure that you can see and that you feel on those value chains, especially in the B2B side, is increasing drastically. So something to keep in mind as well for the future. Now, on the assurance side, this is true that this is something that stakeholders are expecting as well from information that is being reported, like it is the case on the financial reporting side. So before deeping dive into that, we did conduct two studies, so one desktop study and one global investor study. And what we see coming out of this is, as of today, 60% of the companies that is reporting sustainability statement is doing it with a certain level of assurance. Okay, and this level of assurance for the moment is only limited assurance in 80% of the cases. And what do they assure? It's basically a certain number of KPIs that are interesting to their stakeholders. Now, if we look from the other side, from a, let's say, investor angle, what do they say? They say that their trust into non-financial reporting will basically increase towards our move towards reasonable assurance. You can see that their trust index is passing from 55% to 75% towards reasonable assurance. Now, if you do the link with what is being currently proposed by the regulation, especially at corporate side with CSRD, for example, we'll have a first period of reasonable assurance, then progressively move towards reasonable assurance. So there is already a breach which is being made by the regulation towards what basically investors are expecting. Now, if we look at how to embark into an assurance journey, because we are speaking about something completely new. So we are speaking about data which was not audited before, with departments in organization that were not subject to audit, so not used to be part of an audit process. So it's key to prepare it properly. And there are a few elements to keep in mind there, starting by the governance. Once again, making sure that you have governing bodies that can really challenge either the internal or the external audit parties is key to the process. Making sure that the proper skills are embedded into those governing bodies will be key as well. The second thing, maybe the most trivial one, but the one that we see generally, especially as of today, is understand the data that you are reporting and make sure that the data you report is aligned with your strategy. If the data is not aligned with your strategy, the risk of reputation will drastically increase, and this will have a tremendous negative impact on the companies. Top of that, just coming back to the regulation, any organization nowadays will have to put in place a kind of monitoring process about all the regulatory changes. The auditor, at the end of the year, will audit on the basis of the latest one, but you need to make sure that you plan sufficiently in advance, that you track sufficiently in advance all those changes in regulation to make sure that you have sufficient time to implement those. Finally, maybe understand the level of assurance that you will request, that you will need, why regulation is requiring or not something today, but stakeholders are already increasing their demands towards additional assurance in terms of KPIs, in terms of additional reports, whatever. So all of that is crucial to have a smooth first-year assurance journey. That was for assurance. I'm opening it to any questions or to your closing statement.
So we plan and have time to take questions from your side. Yet, I would like to ask you a question first, and I know it's not planned, so don't freak out. It's going to be fine. We talk a lot about reporting. We talk a lot about debt reporting being assured. Yet, I would like to hear from you who you think should be in charge of producing that non-financial reporting within an organization. Any best practice to share? Any thought to share in that space? So nobody is preparing any reporting. So do you think it should be? Yes, please.
I don't have a definite answer because internally we didn't define it yet. The people that we consider is the finance team, the sustainable investing team, or the corporate sustainability team, or another team.
So finance or ESG or CSR, so yes. Financial products, or I assume at the corporate level?
Yes.
Or maybe somebody else. Good, thank you.
Which could be a combination of...
Which could, yeah, indeed. Any other thought? Please.
Yeah, so we are not reporting, we are making new reports, so sorry about that. But so maybe sharing our experience on that is that what we've seen with large investment manager or largest asset owners, that they are actually creating reporting teams, actually, right? With chief reporting officers being sitting on executive teams more and more. So should it be existing person? Sure. I mean, I'm sure that compliance teams have required tools and skill set to work on those mandatory or non-mandatory reporting. But as you mentioned, the legislative framework is evolving so fast that at one point they will need dedicated resources to reporting, I think, and especially, I mean, since. And I do believe in everything you've just said, that reporting can be value creative. It shouldn't be just something that falls on the plate of someone randomly in an organization, and some people should be trained to take care of that issue. That's my take on it, and what we've seen at the PRI, you know, interacting with people actually filling out our reports.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for sharing. Any other? Yes.
When I was working for a startup, this reporting was being done by investor relations manager, which is really between the CFO function and the board. So that's, let's say, it has credibility, but it has to gather all the information from these two and really create this trust with investors.
Thanks. Any last person wants to share something on that before we share our thought?
Yes, so maybe something that we have seen internally is that data collection and reporting might seem to be like a junior things to do. And actually, it's really not, because when you ask, let's say, junior people or people who don't know why they are actually putting all these pieces together, it doesn't work. So it's a little bit same like for financial data. So it looks like it's only figures, but actually what we have experienced is really that it's key to make sure that the people who are taking care of it, they know what is behind the raw data and what is the purpose of putting these pieces in a certain way.
Thanks, and that's very much what we observe, is that obviously it depends if we talk about the pure investment managers, like the management, the UCITS Mancos or the AFMs, or if we look at the targets. But what we observe, and what we believe is likely to be the best approach, is that down the road, the non-financial reporting should go along the financial reporting because of complexity, because of the fact that it is looking after wide areas, a wide number of areas within a company, and because down the road, what we just discussed, that reporting will be assured. There will be a third-party assurance, an external auditor looking into that reporting. And for the time being, within a typical organization, within a typical corporate, the place where all those dimensions are best addressed are with the finance function. They are the ones who are used to generate, collect, aggregate, qualify, check data in order to produce the financial statements. And we do expect and we do believe that the non-financial reporting, again, because of the complexity and at the same time because of the I think this reporting following the same types of approach and the financial reporting, this should go within the finance function. Yet, I must say, from discussions we're having with clients, you'd rather be convincing to say to the CFO that he will be in charge or she will be in charge of that. Again, if we take one step back, it is the more logical place, whereas such a non-financial reporting on the long term should be positioned. With the support of ESG specialists, with the support of people who are knowledgeable about the evolving regulatory framework, agreed. Yet again, CFO is likely to be the place where this reporting should be located in the long term. For the few minutes that we have left, sorry, I just like to ask you if you have any question you want to raise. Yes, please.
Saying you don't see a risk department working on non-financial? No, because they do non-financial risk.
To me and Julien, I leave it up to you to complement. So Julien is more on the corporate side, I'm more on the financial services area. Where we see on the financial services side, so whether it's bank, investment fund managers, but also insurance companies, the risk management team being involved is very much about the management of ESG or sustainability risks. Whether in the banking sector, we look at the ABA guidelines and the CSF guidelines on risk management, or in the fund area, whereas we look at how sustainability risk management have to be embedded within the various processes. But to me, they are not the ones who will be able to report on the entirety of the ESG data set if we think about CSRD. If you think about CSRD, if you started looking into the ASRS, you're likely to find out that there are thousands of data points to manage in order to be able to properly report under CSRD. And those data points are not within the typical or classical remit of the risk management function. So yes, risk management function potentially contributing to that reporting for sure, but they being in charge, it's not the place that the place where I will see it best.
Oh, love you.
I'm losing my voice, but hopefully it will make sense. I have two little questions for you, probably more for Julien. The audit requirement is not yet there, but it will come. As from when we should engage our auditors? And then the second one is that we are a global organization, will be impacted by several regulations, ISSB, CSRD. So how do you frame a report which tackled all those frameworks?
So various comments on that. In terms of timing, and speaking about upcoming regulation like CSRD, I think there is a clear need for organization to engage sufficiently early with the assurance provider. Why? In a transition program, you will generally pass by various stages, starting by your value chain mapping, double materiality assessment, data gap assessment, etc., that can be considered as pre-assurance before the closing date, basically. So starting probably in Q1, Q2 of the year of compliance is the last option that you would have from a timing perspective. Now, when it comes to the various regulations impacting at the same time a company, we have in the financial sectors, financial institution having the product side and the corporate side. There is a leverage that can be made there and absolutely needs to be made. When it comes to reporting standards, if you speak about ISSB and ESRSs, for example, the distinction between the two, so 95% of the principle of ISSB are already embedded into CSRD or ESRS. There will be minimal work to be performed. It just needs to be planned in advance, but that's the way we perceive it, yeah.
And I think we're running short of time, so I suggest we just take, if there is any further questions during the coffee break or later on tonight, hopefully you'll stay with us and see you later. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the insightful presentation.